Are you ready? 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 Are you ready?
Last year, I released Engaging Career Towards Decolonization, Negotiating Black Womanhood Through Autobiographical Analysis. And in that book, I elaborated on a methodology I created for decolonizing subjectivity. And I use that methodology on myself to examine my own lived experiences and explore what came from that decolonizing process. And I invite you to continue with me in taking up that method and seeing what is possible for all of us.
The world in general is ripe for examination for how colonizing imprints remain on all of us and how we are interacting.
So Shauna, as I read your book, it was tough for me just to, as you saw when I emailed you, it was tough for me to select just one quote because there were so many.
That here's a method for bringing me into visibility for myself, and then the entire structure or system has to contend with the fact that I am here now and I recognize that I wasn't there before. And something's wrong with that. And so it allows me to engage in a very difficult, frustrating, disappointing conversation and dialogic from a place of being informed about where I am. So I think in that way, it's hopeful. I think what I love about Carrere is it's not just hopeful in the way that I am theorizing around my absence, and in that way avoiding really grappling with what's really wrong on the very personal, internal level, where I am actually exposing parts of my mind that are not working the way they should because it's been convinced to think in a way that it shouldn't.
Mode in trying to sort of pull back and think about the ways in which first of all, just how the always fight mode actually reinforces anti-Blackness. So thank you again for the book. It's given me lots to, I think I read it twice already, and given me lots to think about and lots to think about in my own unfinished work. So I'm excited about that. So thank you.
And particularly, I really want to say that it's such a touching work and also a courageous work.
This year, I want to introduce you to the Black Subaltern and Intimate Witnessing. In this book, I really engage Caribbean decolonial womanism in a way to explore the flattening disappearance and subjective transmigration of Black subaltern women. I use self-reflexive narrative as a way to revisit moments of colonizing injury to better understand my own implicit complicity with colonization, my implicatedness there, and what metabolized from that process internally and without.
Than what I look like, since I look more like my mother than my aunt. And I recognized almost instinctively that I certainly did not act like a pretty daughter, the way I observed my mother to. I was not fragile, tender, deferentially obedient, or perpetually in need of help, and I begged for the Bantu knots, known then to me as Chinese bumps, that were only an inside hairstyle for pretty daughters.
As a Trinidadian woman who has migrated to America, hearing your vignettes, I hear my story through all of it. I hear the voice of many of the questions that I've had in my mind, and I am so pleased that the world, the academic world, gets to hear about these witnesses from you, but also too that I get to reflect and have a refreshing perspective about some of the things that I've thought about many times over. I'm so honored to have walked with you through this journey, and I'm excited that you are creating a space in the academic world for us to talk about these conversations, for us to view how we as subalterns struggle, find success, and grapple with some places.
When the roll is called out, I'll be standing taller to face the darkest and the hardest of times. We'll be taking care of all the children thereof, but if it's required, we'll be on the front line. You can call me by my name, I am ready to roll. Once the rules remain.
I love this question. And the first reason is one of my favorite writers, his name is K.C. Lehman, you know this. And one of the things he's always talking about is not hiding the truth in your words. And I think that that's kind of what you learn to do when you learn to write. You learn to kind of put distance between the thing that you are and the thing that you're saying. And then if you're a researcher like me, you theorize it so it's even further. You're now talking about everybody else but you, and somehow you're objectively uninvolved. And I think that because I specifically am engaging Caribbean decolonial womanism, I am specifically engaging my own livelihood. I'm engaging my own lived experience because I think that that's the only way to engage in a project like this without being abusive. And also, I mean, to your point about context, you know, it's really easy to maneuver and manipulate what you think you're seeing, reframing that, or just taking one snapshot of something, because out of context, you can really make it anything that you want it to be. But I think putting it into the context of my own life allows me to experience the magnitude of my own complicity. You know, some places where my own mind has been narrowed or misshaped to think in ways that are a disservice to me and a disservice to other people who look like me. And I'm visiting this pain on other people that was visited upon me. And I really wanted my work to embrace my own implicatedness in being both, you know, the victim and in some ways the victor over other oppressed peoples. And so I will never do work that distances me from the thing I'm trying to examine, because I can't understand fully in that way. And even as I'm trying to understand myself, I am aware of the magnitude of even trying to understand myself with all the information ahead of me about me. And it really allows me to see these attachments that I wouldn't have otherwise put together. And I think that that's what instinctively happens when you look at other people. It's like, you did this, you must be a this, and then you're a bad, and you put you over here, and that's the problem is solved. And you're not understanding how all these things link together generationally across peoples, and even within one person having this waterfall of experiences that all blend together. And then that makes this person who can at the same time be really earnestly trying and really earnestly destroying someone else, and then also trying to remake themselves. And I think if we broaden our own understanding of humanity in a way that allows for the full range of who we are, then we will be better for it. And particularly as Black people, we need to be allowed that range. We need to be given the full view of all the things that we are contending with. I think we've all come to a place where we recognize that distraction is focusing on anything else, just trying to get people to agree racism is real, white supremacy has happened, colonization is bad. Okay, we get it. And if you don't get it, you ain't gonna get it. Okay, you don't get it. But what do we do about that? And if we want to examine what we do about that, and we don't want to be reductionist, and we don't want to like find some algorithm that ultimately is going to give out on it, it's not going to take us to where we want to go, then that full witnessing is necessary. It is necessary to witness your own implicit involvement, your in-betweenness in all of that, and to name it, so that in that exposure there can be some acknowledgement and identification that can possibly transmogrify into something else.
Your book is absolutely amazing. It's going to touch women's lives across literally the world. And I just want to thank you for just writing such an intimate piece to help us to remember who we are and to remember to connect back to our bodies. I mean, I'm just telling you.
My ransom payment was a confession of the self-hatred that drove me and my body into the ground. And my redemption from that grave was a bitter forgiveness for that treachery. My body is late, but it is returning. On the best day of my life, my body went completely quiet. Before that, I did not know my body absent of its protestations. Is this blissful blankness what other bodies feel every day?
So I think today was absolutely amazing. My favorite was her first reading. Dr. Shauna Knox read from the chapter called Flattening. It's one of my favorites because I grew up in California in a very, very small rural town where I was one of maybe 5 Black families. And I was very voluptuous when I got to about middle school or high school. And, you know, I was used to people asking me, oh, is your butt real? Are your breasts real? Oh, Taylor, you're so curvy. And this is me as like a 12 to 15-year-old child. And, you know, that chapter when she said that the aunt of her friend asked her if her breasts were real, that was like my immediate, you know, connection to what Dr. Knox was sharing. It was amazing. Additionally, I think the different conversations that we had regarding, you know, being our true selves, getting to a place where we have freedom, and not just freedom and it stops and now you're living at freedom, but having continual freedom in the way that we think and the things that we do, understanding why we think the way we do, why we do the things that we do, and just trying to get to a deeper depth of what we believe in, especially what we believe in ourselves, who are ourselves. I think that was outstanding, especially someone who works in environmental health sciences. I hope to be a scientist one day, and I want to bring my true self to a lab environment, to a research environment. I never want to continue the trend of hiding and dimming my Black light for a person or a people group. So today was outstanding, and it has definitely changed the way that I think and the way that I feel about finding what that freedom is for myself.
But if you decide it is not the ultimate goal, and that there is a bigger, better goal, not just to get freedom so that you can get the acceptance and the money and the power, but just to be free, to recognize all the ones before you that weren't fully free, and to make freedom the project of your life. Free to be human, free to be yourself, free so that the ones who come from you don't get trained up to go back into that pipeline. Then that makes something possible. And I'm not sure exactly what, but I think that it's, if not freedom, it's freedom making. It's the movement of freedom. It's the decision towards freedom, against freedom, and if freedom don't come, we're still going for freedom, you know? And recognizing places where in your body, in your soul, in your mind, you are not free, but deciding that I'd like to free that place. And I would like to engage this world as a free being, and nothing is gonna stop me. So let's begin.
This event was great. Dr. Shauna Knox, she did an amazing job of, one, not only telling about what the book was about, but the process that actually brought her to the place of even being able to share of herself in that way. It was amazing because it was about herself, but she actually revealed so much about other people in that. And listening in felt like a interaction of identity, like being able to just even learn more about myself, about through what she was sharing about herself. So it was an amazing event. Even the questions that were asked gave a moment for more to be revealed as well. And I think something that was such an amazing piece that came out of it was that we're able to be ourselves. There's a process that we can actually take towards freedom, and that truly in all of this that it can be complicated and it can be messy, but it is possible. So I just love that she showed us what are some of those possibilities, what are the things that can reveal more of who we are. And yeah, I think I'm grateful for that. And TChin, thank you so much for taking us on this journey with you. Thank you so much for allowing people into that intimate space with you and sharing this with the world, because I think it truly is a gift.
But I'm wondering, like, how you personally thought, like, the mental effects of the
Yeah, so my first book is specifically 100% about the mental effects of colonization. And because I created a methodology for decolonizing. And I wanted to specify that that's not reversing the effects or even reversing the reality of the process, but it's, again, like we were talking about early, the process of becoming aware of what has been lost and making a decision to continue in that process.
You know how we're often looking for escape hatches when we read a book, like, oh, okay, I don't do that. I'm not like that. There's no way to escape this, and I think it's good. A good interrogation, good self-interrogation of the ways that coloniality, colorism, misogynoir, all of the things that oppress us map onto our lives, and how we sometimes mitigate that and also lord that over others, right? And so thank you for this offering, and thank you for the courage that it took to write in intimate and vulnerable ways, especially within the academy. That comes at a great cost and a great risk, and it's important to name that over and over again, honestly. So thank you.
Thank you. We are over enunciating, and we're looking up to it. It's great. It's like, okay, so that's how you be somebody? Okay, don't tell me that, because I can do it, you know, and it's, you didn't ever try just going as you. It wasn't acceptable or even thought about as a possibility. So this isn't even necessarily centered on white gaze and how that changes us. This is also centered on how we raise ourselves to not be ourselves, and how we romanticize the fact that that's how we were raised, so we visit that upon our children as their children. This was good for me, so this will be good for you. You know, you learn discipline, and you learn how to carry yourself, comport yourself. You learn to be a part of something bigger than yourself, but what about yourself? What about yourself? Where is yourself? Where is the part that yourself gets to speak, where you get to ask the question like, Miss Faberson, I have a question. I'm not saying my mother did want Rosalie, but I'm saying, where was the room for the question?
That's right.
I can only stand here in an orderly fashion and wait once I've procured my water bottle and my lunchbox. And then I am able to go, because this makes me a good girl. And no thoughts can pass through my lips, and no dialogue can happen between me and my mom or me and Miss Faberson, because I'm so highly regulated that all I know how to be is obedient. All I know how to be is submissive. And these colonial constructs were intentionally put in place so that they could train us to be good for factory work, good for line work. And that it's intentionally done so that we learn to obey. But what about if the thing that you're obeying is destroying you?
Yeah.
And what if that's not your heuristic? This is not the way that I think. If I'm a critical thinker who just naturally asks, I wonder why that is. I'm just curious about why we have to keep blessing Miss Faberson. I don't know why.
When do we get blessings?
That's what I'm saying. Why do we have to do school is over for today? Are there any answers to questions? And there just wasn't even room for questions. You ask questions, you're a naughty girl. You're crying in school, you're a naughty girl. You're just naughty. You go outside of the lines on the purple and white grid on your uniform and your Puritan collar, you are a naughty girl. Put on your bloomers in Jamaica. Why?
Right.
Why are the bloomers there?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, there's just, the nostalgic artifacts are the pieces of us that we release over time that I alluded to earlier when I was talking to Shayla. We don't get them back, but also we need to contend with that we became a people who learned how to lose ourselves. It's what we do best. If you're you're admitted into society, you learn how to navigate how black you want it to be, and how much of yourself you would carry into a space, and you learn that it's perfectly rational that you should have to strip yourself of you in order to enter a place. That's
not only moved in an emotional sense or just a strong emotional reaction, but it's also moved in the sense of times in which the discussion was making me reflect upon moments of my own life in ways that I hadn't previously. Think about the ways that, I've interacted with my parents, better understood my parents, considered what it meant for the ways in which I might interact with others in my life, be it other adults in my life, or children in my life as well, as that was a large part of today's conversation. So I cannot recommend the book enough. The vignettes, I think, allow for a deeper type of connection for such a difficult subject, right? I think sometimes we're afraid to engage with this topic, the topic of colonization upon the psyche, what it means to be Black within that frame of reference. How do we, I think sometimes, I can speak for myself, it's like you want to push up against it by not interacting with it, saying that's something that's happened in the past, we're beyond that now, look at all the ways in which we're successful now, we're succeeding, we're thriving. And yet I feel that this piece of work just reminds us that there's still so much to be done, so much that can be done, so much that should be done, so much that we have the opportunity to do, if we allow ourselves the space to do it. And I think the vignettes kind of help with that. Really bring it back down to the humanity behind this all in the ways that that's been lost in this process. So just an amazing session all around. So happy got the chance to experience it. Definitely recommend this work. So we've just concluded the book launch, The Black Subaltern and Intimate Witnessing, and it was a time. We came together as community, we laughed, we cried, and we discussed all the ways that colonizing injury has changed us and what's possible beyond it. We corralled ourselves to talk about what the movement towards freedom demands of us and what we should respond in light of it.
Because this poem is to be continued in your mind, in your mind, in your mind. In your mind. Thank you.
When the roll is called up, we'll be standing taller to face the darkest and the hardest of times. We'll be taking care of all the children thereof. But if it's required, we'll be on the front line. You can call me by my name. I am ready to roll once the rules remain the same.